Who is the latest group of Spartans to enter their name in the transfer portal? Are you, yes, you going to play quarterback for Michigan State next year? Let's start getting that arm loose over there in case that's, what's going to happen. And then, what were the 5 biggest takeaways from the Jonathan Smith press conference? And also, basketball. Sure, I guess we should talk about you eventually. Why not?
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On Spartans is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. It is fantasy sports made easy with Prize Picks. Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another jam-packed show of Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. I'm your host, Matt Sheehan. If you want to reach out, lockedonspartans@gmail.com. Also, hey, please rate, review, subscribe. Go ahead, smash 5-star rating on the podcast platforms. And enough with the housework. Off we go. Again, we got a lot to talk about today. And we're going to kick things off with that moolah, baby. That's right. We're talking that green. We are talking Jonathan Smith's contract. The details finally emerged today. It is going to be a $7.25 million a year contract for 7 years. Now, that's only for the first year. It's $7.25 million each year. In the 7 years, that's going to bump up by $100,000. Now, that puts him at a smooth 6th place in the conference behind guys like Luke Fickell, James Franklin, Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Day, and that's right, Lincoln Riley over there at USC. We're going to count them because, well, they're joining the party next year. So that puts them 6th, just on the cusp of upper 3rd in the Big Ten. And in the nation, it's in the 15th-ish category, which matches up to where Michigan State stacks up as far as athletic revenue goes. Last year, Michigan State brought in the 12th most revenue amongst college programs. So yes, this fits right into the financials that Michigan State kind of plays in right there. Now another appealing number that we were all waiting to hear. There were heavy rumors that, hey, the assistant pool isn't going to be good. It's going to be pretty outstanding, actually. It's going to be higher than what Mel Tucker had when he was here. And that is the case because Jonathan Smith gets to swim in a $10.75 million assistant pool for assistant coaches, support staff, all the likes of that. And that is just a $250,000 shy of what Mike Elko is getting at Texas A&M. Now, why do I bring up Texas A&M? Because, well, it's pretty relevant. These guys were hired within 24 hours at their respected places, but also, what is Texas A&M known for? Loading that money cannon and throwing money at every single problem that they find. All right, if the big spenders are giving $11 million and we are just $250,000 behind that, it's a long way of saying that, yeah, that's a really good pool for assistant coaches. Now, of course, that doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean that everything is going to be hunky-dory up here and then we're going to get the best staff in the nation, because what was one of the knocks, one of the many knocks against Mel Tucker here is that, hey, yeah, he had this giant assistant pool. Not as good as Jonathan Smith has right now, but it was still amongst the best in the nation. And instead of going out and finding the best staff possible, and look, he did make some pretty solid hires like Brandon Jordan. It wasn't all a dud. But as the years went on, and we're in our 3rd year here, and our 4th year here, and we are not cutting any of the coordinators or any of the fat and bringing in better coaches with your assistant pool, well, it certainly seems like we're just handing out a lot of money to our friends for no good reason, doesn't it? And look, hey, I know Jonathan Smith has brought over, as of now, 5 guys from Oregon State over here to East Lansing. Okay. The difference is, we talked about this in yesterday's show, is that you can actually see the results that the other 5 guys that are coming here have. They have put guys in the NFL. They have had made incremental progress in statistical categories, all the likes of that nature. But, hey, we still got to spend some money here because there's some news that broke late on Tuesday. Trent Bray, the defensive coordinator at Oregon State, had the Beavers playing lights out on the defensive side of the ball. In 2022, they led the Pac-12 in just about every relevant statistical category on defense you can name. Also pretty good work on defense this year as well. He has been promoted to head coach over at Oregon State. So no, that will not be the key defensive coordinator that comes over here. So this is where the assistant pool really plays a factor. Also, there's rumors that, hey, Blue Adams, the defensive back coach, he might be getting swayed to stay over in Corvallis as well. Maybe he becomes the defensive coordinator over there, or maybe the sales pitch from Bray is going to be good enough to keep him over in Corvallis and not come to East Lansing. But that is what the assistant pool is for. All right, you have to make a home run hire for defensive coordinator here. And I know that this is such a casual take of saying like, oh, Phil Parker. That's right. 60-year-old defensive coordinator at Iowa, the guy who has constructed a defense good enough to get to the Big Ten title game despite having just 10 Scarecrow and the hot dog vendor playing on offense for Iowa. Like, that's how good he is. And, of course, let's not forget Michigan State grad as well, or guys like Jim Leonard as well. I talked about him for a little bit yesterday, former Wisconsin defensive coordinator and then head coach for about 60 seconds. But, yes, money should be able to solve this issue. Pull another key defensive coordinator away from somewhere. God, because, yeah, if we just have a dud at defensive coordinator, then what is celebrating this assistant pool all for? It is for naught. All right, let's go swimming in the transfer portal really quick because a handful of Spartans once again dove in. This time it's Noah Kim, Christian Fitzpatrick, Jerron Glover, Tyrell Henry, and Gino Vandenmark on Tuesday announced their intentions to go into the portal. And, of course, with Noah Kim going into the portal, Sam Levitt yesterday and Caden Hauser also yesterday. Guys, that is all three of your quarterbacks that are in the transfer portal. Noah Kim, 5 games he played last year. He was the Big Ten Player of the Week versus Richmond, had 15 straight completions in that Richmond game, which is a school record, a program record. But as we all know, it did not get better after that. In the 3 games against Power 5 opponents after that, 6 interceptions, just 1 touchdown pass. And yes, just like I said, just like you already know, all the quarterbacks are gone right now. So if the season were to kick off tomorrow, look, I know that one person made that Buick field goal challenge kick in between the third and fourth quarter this year. I think it was to go to a bowl game is what they say over the PA system. How about instead of tickets to a bowl game that MSU isn't going to, he gets to play quarterback for Michigan State next year. We have maybe kind of somewhat a solution, but we'll get to that in a little bit here. Christian Fitzpatrick, 18 catches, 252 yards, and 1 touchdown against Nebraska, if you remember. 5th in receiving yards for this team and 6th in catches. Jerron Glover, promising young player, did not play a lot this year due to injury. I've no reason to put air quotes around it, but this was a really wonky season, so he did not play a lot this year, but a promising player. Tyrell Henry, 24 catches, 4th best on the team, and 3 touchdowns, which had him tied for 1st on the team. And then Gino Vandenmark as well. Not the only offensive lineman. Him, Ethan Boyd, and Kevin Wigington aren't just 3 linemen that are in the transfer portal right now, but all 3 starting caliber. And this is the interesting part. Maybe it's not interesting at all. This is just the inconvenient part. I'll use that I word. Instead of interesting, it's the inconvenient part. Because we all remember a mass exodus in the transfer portal when Mel Tucker came here. Okay, that's because he walked into that room to address his team for the first time and saw a mid-level MAC roster. All right? And that's not just me being a jerk podcast host. Like, go look at where all those kids went. Very rarely did you see a kid land at a Power 5 school, let alone even play there. This is a different scenario, though. Many of these kids leaving, not every single one, but many of these kids leaving, I could very well see go to Power 5 schools. Guys like Jerron Glover, guys like Tyrell Henry, guys like Gino Vandenmark, Ethan Boyd, Kevin Wigington, just what I talked about. So that is what makes it a bummer. Again, I'm not pulling every fire alarm. I'm not saying that this is the end of times because this is kind of the rebuild that we expect. This is going to be a strip it down to the studs and rebuild this thing from scratch sort of thing. Now, if you are a player, if you're wondering why are all these players leaving, here's something that you might not even want to hear. Because if I was an advisor of one of these kids, if I was in their corner, why not? Like, why not? Because, hey, look, they can enter their name in the transfer portal, shop around, see what the market is like, if it's going to be an NIL thing for them, or see what else is out there for play style goes, or, hey, personnel, how often you be on the field, yada, yada, yada. Why not at least shop around? This is very reminiscent of, hey, when the NBA draft opens, you can put your name in there, get feedback, and then come back to that school. And I always say, if you have any slight aspiration of playing professional basketball, you should always enter the draft. Right now, again, don't tell any Spartan I said this, but like I would push kids to just enter the transfer portal just to see what's out there, just to see what other options exist. Even if your heart is 95% at MSU, just go see what the 5% is all about. You can come back to open arms. This isn't like a coaching staff you've been playing for like 5 years and, you don't want to burn a bridge or anything. Like, no. You can hit a reset button on your career and see what else is out there, just like Jonathan Smith just did. So that's just my take on the whole thing. Now, let's not kid ourselves. Really quick, I do want to just add this caveat. I'm not saying that most of these kids are going to come back and this is what they're doing, because let's not kid ourselves here in this situation. They have probably been hearing from programs for the last, 8 weeks? Whenever that Mel Tucker story came out in the middle of the night, they've had, for the better part of 2 months, suitors probably having conversations with their people about joining them at their program. And no, again, I said this on yesterday's show. I'll say it again. This isn't me crying. This isn't me saying, you can't do tampering. That's against the rules. Like, let's all grow up. This is what happens. This is college football. Like, I'm sure, awkwardly enough, Jonathan Smith is one of the last people and is probably too little too late when he's sitting down and talking to these kids for the one-on-one conversations, because when that game ended, or even before that game ended, they already knew where they were going to go next because they've already been talking to other programs. So, yes, they can come back. Will they? I got a hard time believing that right now. All right, that was a very long first segment. Oh, boy, Mr. Lockdown is not going to be happy with that one. But we got a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to talk about the presser here in a hot segment. But first, you need to talk your ears off about Prize Picks, the leader in daily fantasy sports. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. This is what makes Prize Picks fun. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Like, for example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at 10.5 points, combination of 3-pointers made and receptions. And you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schulz? Well, now you can find them in the community plays under the promos tab of the app and view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every week. Also, Prize Picks wants to have you winning very early on. Because when you go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LOCKEDONCollege, you're going to get a first deposit match up to $100. That's right, gang. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for first deposit match up to $100. It's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Also, need to talk your ear off about this sign behind me by the folks at Team Ticker. When you go to teamticker.com, you're going to see these great Michigan State sports signs for your sports bar, your man cave, your garage, your bathroom, your bedroom, wherever you want to put these signs and make your space the best Michigan State space possible. It's going to blow people away. Not just because they look cool, all right? Not just because these cool countdown signs flash stats, AP polls, weather reports, not just because of all of that, but it's going to blow them away because these are new guys. Like, this is a company that has not been around for long. Not a lot of Spartan fans have this. I mean, more now that we've been talking about them for the last month, and they've been getting rave reviews from the people that have in mind. But yes, if you want a sweet holiday gift for the Spartan in your life, or maybe just for yourself, teamticker.com. But also use promo code LOCKEDON. That's all one word. That's going to get you $50 off of your purchase. Again, gang, promo code LOCKEDON, all one word, to receive $50 off your purchase at teamticker.com. Now, before we talk about this press conference, hey, I said that, I might have a solution for this quarterback, and we talked about Aiden Childs yesterday. All right, the former top 100 recruit out of California. That would be nice to have. As of now, his name isn't even in the transfer portal. But you know who else has some eligibility here? Despite being in college for 14 years, DJ Uyunglele. That's right. He's got one more year of eligibility. Now, I would highly doubt that both Aiden Childs and or DJ Uyunglele stay in Corvallis to split time again. All right, that's not how college football works these days. I can see one of them entering the transfer portal. We talked about Aiden Childs yesterday. That'd be awesome. That'd be a great top prize to have. But DJ Uyunglele, if he wants to follow Jonathan Smith, a guy that has revived his career, a guy that took a guy that was broken at Clemson, essentially, and made him into a competent quarterback, 21 touchdowns this year, by the way, 7 interceptions, 57% completion percentage, also 68 carries, 3.2 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. You take that. You take that. The bones are there. Look, this kid was not rated. I shouldn't say kid. He's got to be at least 29 years old at this point, but he was not rated the number 2 overall recruit, just only behind Bryce Young. That's right, Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young, for no reason. All right, he's shown his good flashes in Corvallis. So, hey, if that's going to be our quarterback solution, I can name a lot worse things. So, yes, we got to sit. We got to do the worst thing in the world as fans. We got to be patient. But, again, just like we talked about in yesterday's show, with every quarterback going into the portal from East Lansing, they're not going to be the only 3 quarterbacks that are in the portal, guys. The portal is swimming with quarterbacks. So, again, I think we all know this. Just want to reiterate it. I'm going to give you my 5 biggest takeaways here from the press conference today. And we're going to start at number 1. We're going to start at 1 and work our way to 5, and then I'll have some honorable mention things at the end. But the number 1 thing that I thought was interesting in this introductory press conference was that they talked about what they were looking for. And so I'm not even talking about Jonathan Smith, anything he said. What Alan Haller said before Jonathan Smith took the microphone, that's what caught my eye, because he talked about the committee he had as well. He got help from guys like Steve Smith, Lorenzo White, Benny Fowler, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Ray, and 14 current student athletes, which I thought was very interesting. And you could hypothesize that those are 14 football players. I don't think he was asking Trey Holloman, hey, what are you going to look for in a football coach here? Yeah, I don't think he was going to the cross-country team and saying, hey, guys, hey, my name's Alan Haller. Quick question. What do you guys want to see in the football? No, it is interesting that he got the opinions of 14 football players here, and this is what they wrote down. They want a man of character, someone that develops authentic relationships on and off the field, someone that develops them on the field as well, someone that motivates the community, and then also a Power 5 head coach. By all accounts, I know Jonathan Smith, I don't even know if he has a house yet to live in East Lansing, but he's been here for so little. But hey, from all accounts, we're checking things across the board right now. And you hear stories from Corvallis about how nice of a person he was, how great for the community he was. We're checking everything right there. Item number 2 that I thought was most interesting from this press conference. This was a great question from Stephen Brooks of 24/7 Sports. Asked one of the few good questions at this press conference. Not to throw the great MSU media contingent under the bus here, but I don't know if I needed to know if Jonathan Smith owned a green tie. Whatever. Anyway, Stephen Brooks, great question. He asked what can be repeated in this rebuild that was similar to his rebuild at Oregon State that started in 2018, which, not just 5 years ago, but also before the transfer portal boom, before NIL. He asked, what can you carry over here? And he said the idea of building trust with the players and knowing their story, getting to know these players, not just on the tape, but also their actual backstory, who they are as a person, where they come from, where they want to be in life. And this led to my favorite quote from Jonathan Smith of the press conference. It was, quote, "You can coach these guys as hard as you care about these guys." I mean, we see that on the basketball court every single year for the last 20 plus years with Tom Izzo, because we see him, get on his guys. But what does it always end with? The former players and the current players saying yeah, we love it because we know he loves us. Jonathan Smith, well, I don't think he's going to be snapping clipboards over anyone's head anytime soon. It's the same kind of idea, though, that you got to know your players. You got to actually build a real relationship with them if you want to coach them. Now, the third takeaway that I got is describing what we will see on the field. He said, quote, "We want to make a physical brand on both sides of the ball while having an innovative style of offense." Talked a little bit about that right after the hire. Now, that's backed up by having a lot of pre-snap motion, almost double than what Michigan State ran last year, and then stretching the field outside runs as well. They do a lot lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. So very physical, but there have been comparisons from Oregon State brass, actually, the beat writers over there, that compare the offense to kind of San Francisco 49ers-ish, which is like, that's always a sexy thing to say. So I don't know if it'll be that good, but you get the idea. It's going to be a different look here on the field, especially with that physicality as well. Now, the fourth item I took away from here is his outlook at the job. Just, hey, what do you have in front of you? He said, quote, it's going to take some work, and I'm up for the challenge and opportunity of what is ahead of us. Also talked about building culture with Chris Peterson at Washington before the Huskies 2016 college football playoff season. And he's also said, not just at this press conference, but also in the airport when that small media group asked him a few questions, he kept saying, no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts. There's no shortcuts, which might as well be a mantra of this team, of this season, of this rebuild. And that's the fifth takeaway, is he was asked if he's got any catchphrases that he wants to throw out there. You know, like keep chopping, the woodshed, relentless, all that fun stuff. But no, he said, I don't know, low ego, high output, which I like that one. Low ego, high output, and then selfless. So those were the 5 biggest takeaways I had. I mean, if you didn't watch the press conference, I recommend going back and watching it. It was very, look, it's hard to lose an introductory press conference. I'm not going to say like he won the press conference. He did it. He aced it. Like, yeah, he did, because it is very hard to lose one of these, but still, you saw a guy poised, confident, charismatic, and what else did you miss too? Yeah, like you got emotional talk about his family, which cannot be easy. He's got 3 children, his wife, and look, in the middle of the school year, I don't know if they're gonna stay in Oregon and finish out their school year or what their situation is. Regardless, that's got to be hard to move across the country to a part of the country you've never lived in, with 3 kids to boot. So he got very emotional talking about them. Also, Alan Haller talked about Jennifer Smith as well. She is the deputy athletic director, and just, keeping his head screwed on tight during the entire process. So he gave a big credit to her, Jennifer Smith. And yeah, I mean, also, he mentioned connecting with the former players. I thought it was nice that Alan Haller kicked the press conference off thanking the football players for everything they've done the last few weeks, because that was an insane season that they just underwent. And then after talking about the players, he went right into talking about the fans, the MSU community. He said that, hey, coaches, while interviewing them, which, by the way, he interviewed at least 12 coaches, it came out, that these coaches would talk about how loyal and how great the MSU fan base was. Now, is that, like, if that's true, that's actually remarkable, and that is a big pat on the back to us, guys. So go ahead. If you're listening to this and you're a Michigan State fan, go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back right there. We're going to be talking a little bit more about football, barely. There's just some all Big Ten teams that came out. And then, hey, what's up over there, basketball? How are you doing? But first, need to talk your ear off about LinkedIn jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So when you're hiring for your small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview. That's why you got to go check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It is not just another job board over there at LinkedIn either. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time to resource that hire. So, hey, do it with LinkedIn, guys. Just like I said, it's quick, it's easy, it's free. What is not to like about LinkedIn? You can see why it's rated number 1 amongst small businesses. So what are you waiting for? Go post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, as always, gang, they apply. All right, really quick, the Big Ten, they dropped their defensive and special team, all Big Ten teams. Not a lot of Spartans on here. Sorry to keep being a Debbie Downer about football, but yeah, Ryan Eckley, though. The punter, Ryan Eckley. The punter that I had some serious doubts about and worries about before the season. I said, hey, you know what? We got some worries this year. One of mine is that the drop-off from Bryce Behringer to Ryan Eckley, that might be pretty steep, guys, because, well, not only is Bryce Behringer the best punter in the nation, in my opinion, but what do we know about this young guy, Ryan Eckley? Like, that's going to be a worry. Well, little did I know that quite literally was the least of our concern this year, because Ryan Eckley was awesome, man. He got second team all Big Ten. He had the second highest average in the Big Ten with 46.7 yards per punt. The second most punts inside the 20-yard line with 24, and the second most 50-plus yard punts. Torrey Taylor of Iowa, he's the first team all Big Ten guy. That's the guy who jumped Eckley in all those categories. So, yeah, shout out to Ryan Eckley. I mean, honorable mention guys for the defense, Jaden Mangum, Kyle Halliday, Simeon Barrow. None of those three guys got on the top 3 all Big Ten teams. And then Jonathan Kim as well got an honorable mention. So that wraps up the football right now. On Wednesday, they're going to be dropping the all Big Ten offense team. I wouldn't stay peeled to that news necessarily. I can't imagine that we'll have a lot to smile about there, but whatever. Hey, it's a new rebuild. That's right, no shortcuts. All right, let's talk about the basketball team. And I shouldn't look that stressed. They just had a nice win over Georgia Southern, a team that me, you, and the 4 closest people to you probably could have beat. That is not a good Georgia Southern team. That's a lousy team. And before, I just, give a few good nods to Michigan State for their win on Tuesday. That team is so bad that, look, I'm not doing like podcast hot take right here. I think that was maybe the worst defensive game Michigan State has had. And that sounds ridiculous because Georgia Southern had 11 points going into halftime. But truly, I say that for 2 reasons. One, because Michigan State has just set the bar so high for themselves on defense this year. I mean, even in their losses, defensively, they've looked really good. Like in that James Madison game, all right, defense, not necessarily a problem. The Duke game, for the bulk of that game, really strong defense. So why I say it was the worst defensive output is because the other 6 games they've been doing really well. And the other part is that Georgia Southern had a lot of wide open shots in that first half. Now, again, it's not a good Georgia Southern team. You can get away with it. And no, I'm not going to panic about the defense moving forward here. But yeah, that was interesting that, wow, we're giving up a lot of wide open looks here. And it's a good thing we're playing probably the worst team that's going to step into the Breslin Center this year right now. But any other takeaways from this game? The takeaways that you could have is actually something that happened before the game. Is that Trey Holloman got the start at point guard, and then Mady Sissoko got the start again at center. Now, as far as the center position goes, I can see this going on through the rest of the season. Like, Mady starts 3 games in a row, and then Carson starts 2 games in a row, and then Mady, like, that can flip-flop all season long. I can very well see that. Now, the point guard is more the storyline for the obvious reason. That means that AJ Hoggard was benched. That's right, your senior point guard. We are 7 games into the year, and he is already asked to sit on the bench. And, folks, he wasn't even the first point guard brought into the game after Trey Holloman. That was Jeremy Fears that was the second point guard out there. And we're going to go to the mailbag right now to kind of springboard the rest of the AJ conversation because Justin wrote in to lockedonspartans@gmail.com, writing with 3 minutes left in the first half. Is this team better with AJ off the floor right now? Love AJ, but he's obviously on an offensive slump, but his body language is bad and he's too turnover prone. Your thoughts? If you agree, how should Izzo handle the situation and how will he handle the situation? How should he? In my opinion, boy, I don't think he should start for the time being until he proves it because look, 7 games into the year. And just like Justin wrote in, 3 minutes left in the first half. His first half was not good yet again, but his second half was fine. AJ Hoggard, he finished the game with 12 points, 4 assists, 8 points, and 3 of those assists came in the second half. But still, we're 7 games into the year. That's 14 halves. He's had, 3 halves of good basketball? I'm not even asking for second half against Kansas State AJ Hoggard every single game. Like I just want mentally locked in AJ Hoggard, just like the turnover prones that you're talking about and that you're seeing as well. So no, I don't think that 14 halves into the season, just having 3 good halves from your senior point guard is good enough to continue starting. And I don't think it's Trey that should be starting either. I know that this might be just crazy to hear, but I think a lot of us are going to agree with one another. The McDonald's All-American that has quickly shown that he does have a grasp of the college game in Jeremy Fears. He's strung together some good games so far. All right. He's not going to be turnover prone lately, just like AJ is, of course. And it's just, if we're going to start building, and this sounds crazy to say, but if we're going to start also building for the future as well, getting some good reps, like maybe this is just the best for all parties involved. Jeremy Fears is getting the reins. Now, that's what I want to happen. What will happen? Let's not kid ourselves. AJ Hoggard's going to start next week against Wisconsin Tuesday. All right, this is just the one game that you're going to bench him for, teach him a lesson, show him some tape, and then get him back out there. But it's been difficult for Izzo too, and he talked about this after the game as well, that he's tried everything with AJ Hoggard. He's tried yelling at him. He's tried pampering him, but it's been a really, really disappointing and odd start to the season for AJ Hoggard. So that's the one takeaway that you could have right there for that game. It's just what happened before. Now, also during the game as well, we did see some other things, namely with the freshmen. And then after the game, Tom Izzo spoke and said, quote, "The biggest thing right now, that playing group is going to shrink. It's nobody's fault. Just some of the freshmen aren't ready to play. And they're going to have to either get ready in a week or we're going to start shrinking it down because that does create some of our problems." He's not talking about Garrett Norman. Obviously, he's redshirting. Not talking about Jeremy Fears. That's the one freshman you can trust. He did talk a little bit about Cohen Carr, how he needs to start using his physicality and strength to defend the perimeter some more. I have a hard time believing that Cohen Carr gets weeded out from this lineup. I think he's going to stick around here. Now, whether it's going to be like 4 minutes one night, 16 minutes the next, because, well, if you get on the court and you have some early freshman mistakes, then welcome to my doghouse, as Tom Izzo, as we all know this. But no, it's the fourth freshman, and ironically enough, the highest rated guy that we are talking about, Xavier Booker. Now, guys, if you've listened to the show in the offseason, even before Izzo said to be patient with Xavier Booker, this is one of the we got this right, so we're going to celebrate this. I said to be very patient with Xavier Booker. I know he's highly rated, McDonald's All-Star, 5-star. The ceiling is why he's rated that high. He needs to get bigger physically. He needs to get better at defense. So just be patient, guys. However, I did not know we'd have to be this patient. And no, this isn't going to be me railing on Tom Izzo for not playing him enough, because you also kind of saw in this Georgia Southern game why he doesn't really play a lot. On defense, it seems like we're getting beat a little more than the average person is right now. And don't get me wrong, it's fun when he's playing help side defense, comes out of nowhere, gets a nice block, kind of like Jaren Jackson used to back in the day. But boy, when it's ISO time, kind of saw today in the first half as well, blown right by for an easy dunk for Georgia Southern. And then also on the offensive end, 20% shooting. So right now, as it stands in his career, he's not physical enough to play in the post. So right now you kind of have this almost 7-foot 3-and-D guy that doesn't really play stellar defense, certainly not up to the Tom Izzo standard. And he also shoots a 3-point ball at 20%. I don't know if we have a spot for you on this court, actually. And he gave Xavier Booker some extended run today against Georgia Southern because, this is a team you kind of got to get momentum going here if you're going to have anything this year. So, where do I stand in the whole Xavier Booker thing? Oh, no, why isn't he playing so much against Arizona or Duke or any of those guys? It's because he would get carved up in those games. It brings me no joy to say this. I want it to work out. I want him to be so good that we have to worry about him being a one-and-done this year. But, guys, Tom Izzo isn't doing this for a bit, just to teach people a lesson. He's not ready, guys. He is not ready. So when he says freshman, got to trim him down. That's maybe, kind of to fire Cohen Carr up. Hey, bud, you got a lot of tools. You got a lot of gifts physically. Let's start using them, or you're going to be sitting next to me more than you'd ever want to the rest of the season. Then, kind of just telling everyone, the Xavier Booker thing is going to be even slower than we already thought, which is, it's disappointing, but what else are you going to do? You can't just throw him out there, just have him look lost and get beat and clank shots as much as he is. That's detrimental. It's not good. It's not good. Also, when is Steven Izzo going to score now? Come on, fill the hoop. All right. Well, God, here we are at the end of the episode again, guys. Again, this is a longer episode. I don't know if Mr. Lockdown is going to appreciate this, but let me tell you, MSU basketball is going to appreciate that, because I was going to go on this long monologue about how underwhelming of a start to the year this is, but I guess we'll have to save that for another day, or hey, maybe we never get around to it. Because look, you win against Wisconsin, you beat Baylor. Who am I kidding? I'll be all back in. I'm a sucker. So, hey, gang, there we have it. Any other news that breaks, we're gonna hit to it. We're gonna hit it tomorrow. You already know what it is. Locked on Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Now go enjoy the rest of your week. Love you all. Go green.